There is something that stays with you long after you notice it, something quiet, something that settles in your chest before your mind even finds the words for it. It is the feeling of watching someone disappear from a place where they have always been. Not in a sudden way, not with a dramatic announcement or a headline that breaks everything open. Just slowly, gently, like a light that dims so gradually you almost convince yourself it is still as bright as before, until one morning the seat is empty. And the silence that follows says everything the words could not. Gayle King has sat in that chair for years. For millions of people, she was the first voice of the day. Before the noise of the world rushed in, before the weight of everything settled back onto their shoulders, there was her. Her warmth, her laugh. The way she leaned forward when something genuinely caught her attention, not because the camera was on her, but because she actually cared. That is not something you can fake for long. And she never had to, so when the absences started, people felt it, not because they were looking for something to worry about. But because when something that has always been there begins to shift, some part of you knows before you can explain why. The questions came quietly at first, in comment sections, in group chats. Passed between people who had never met but shared the same morning ritual. Where is she? Is everything all right? Has anyone said anything? The answers that came back were thin, careful. The kind of careful that does not put you at ease, the kind that makes the silence feel louder. And so the worry grew, not the kind of worry that feeds on gossip or craves drama, real worry. The kind that rises in your throat when you think about someone you have come to depend on without ever quite deciding to. The kind that reminds you how much someone can matter, even from a distance. Even through a screen, this is not a story built on rumor. It is a story about a woman who spent decades giving herself to the public, and what it means when that woman faces something that cannot be shared on a morning broadcast. Something that belongs only to her. To truly understand why people respond to Gayle King the way they do, you have to look past the title, past the camera, past every accolade and every headline. You have to look at what she actually is, which is a presence. A real, consistent human presence in a world that is full of performances. She did not rise to where she is through a single moment of viral fame or a carefully packaged image. She built it slowly, deliberately. Morning after morning, interview after interview, year after year. There is a different kind of trust that gets built that way. It does not burn bright and fast. It holds. It deepens over time. Her childhood moved with her. Her father served in the military, and that life, always new rooms, always new faces, always having to figure out how to belong somewhere quickly, shaped her in ways that became her greatest professional gift. She learned how to make people feel seen, how to listen in a way that went beyond just waiting for her turn to speak. She carried that with her into every studio, every interview, every early morning when most of the world was still sleeping. She studied at the University of Maryland and found her way into local television, not through an easy door, but through persistence and hard work and the willingness to start small and stay committed. Along the way, she formed what would become one of the most discussed friendships in the history of American media, her bond with Oprah Winfrey. It is a friendship that has lasted decades, survived scrutiny, and remained, by all accounts, genuinely real. But that friendship, as meaningful as it is, has a way of casting a long shadow. And sometimes in that shadow, something important gets missed. Gayle King did not build her career on someone else's name, she built it on her own. Her seat at CBS was not given to her, she earned it. She shaped it, she made it something people actually looked forward to. She has sat with presidents and asked them questions they did not want to answer. She has been in rooms with grieving families during some of the most painful moments in recent history, and she held those spaces with care. She pressed R. Kelly in an interview that became a defining moment in television journalism, not because she was loud or aggressive, but because she was still, calm, completely unmoved by the pressure to back down. She stayed steady when everything around her was not. That is not something you are born knowing how to do. That is craft built over years. People trusted her because she never felt like a constructed version of a person. What you saw felt honest, felt real. And that made everything that came after, all the worry, all the concern, feel that much more personal. For most people who reach the level she reached, there are two versions of themselves. The one the world sees, polished and intentional, and the private one, guarded and carefully protected. Gayle King always seemed to live somewhere in between, not recklessly open, but honestly so. She talked about her divorce without hiding the difficulty of it. She raised her two children, Kirby and William, while anchoring a national program, and she did not pretend that was effortless. She spoke about her body, her health habits, her ongoing effort to take care of herself, in the same matter-of-fact tone she used to discuss world events. Not for sympathy. Just because that was who she was. Someone who did not see the point in pretending everything was always fine. That honesty built a bond with her audience that is hard to name precisely but easy to feel. It was not the frenzied attachment of celebrity worship. It was something quieter and more durable. The feeling of knowing someone's rhythms, of being able to sense when something is off without being told. The same feeling you get with a close friend or a family member whose mood you can read before they say a single word. Her mornings on television became a ritual for people. Something they returned to not just out of habit but because it felt good to be there. Coffee, the news, Gayle, that sequence, that reliability. That sense that some things, at least, could be counted on. People who worked alongside her spoke about the consistency of her character. About the fact that the warmth she brought to the camera did not vanish when the camera stopped rolling. That is rarer than most people imagine, and it is worth something. It means that what her audience fell for was not a performance, it was her. So when the whispers started, when the absences became something people could no longer explain away, the concern that followed was not about losing a television personality. It was about losing someone they felt they genuinely knew. It began the way things like this always begin, quietly, with explanations that sounded reasonable on the surface. Guest hosts cycle in and out, schedules shift, anchors travel, life happens even on live television. There is nothing unusual about any of that, but regulars notice things. People who have watched the same program for years develop a sense for it, for the rhythm of it. And when that rhythm changes, when the pattern feels slightly different from what it was before, something in them registers it before they can put words to it. According to reports that began circulating within media circles and among longtime viewers, Gayle King's presence on the program became less consistent in a way that felt distinct from ordinary scheduling. The online conversation shifted. It moved from casual observation to something more pointed. People who had watched every single morning were asking questions without clean answers. No official statement arrived quickly, and in that kind of silence the imagination fills in what it can. Some people pushed back. She is a grown woman, they said. She is allowed time away. There is nothing to see here, and maybe they were right to say so. But others, particularly those who had watched for the longest, felt something that simple logic could not quite reach. That low, quiet hum of concern that does not go away just because you try to reason with it. The reports, when they became more defined, were careful in the way that responsible reporting on health should always be. The details were not sensationalized. But the shape of what emerged, according to those reports, was this. Gayle King was facing a health challenge significant enough to affect her daily life. Significant enough to pull her, at least partially, out of the space she had occupied with such consistency for so long. For some people, that news was simply a reminder of how fast things can turn. For others, it reached somewhere more personal, into their own experiences with illness, into the memories of watching someone they loved navigate a diagnosis that rearranged everything, into the understanding that health does not wait for a convenient moment. There is a particular kind of weight that comes with being a public figure and facing something private and serious. You have spent years living, to some degree, in front of people. Your opinions, your career, your relationships, your choices, they exist in the open. People feel a connection to you. They feel, sometimes without fully realizing it, that they have some small stake in what happens to you. And then something arrives that is entirely yours. Something that belongs only to your body and your doctors and the people you hold closest. Something that asks you to be private, truly private, perhaps for the first time in a very long time. That tension is real, and it is not easy. For someone like Gayle King, who built so much of her credibility on her willingness to be honest, the question of what to share and what to protect becomes genuinely complicated. There is no clean answer. There is only the daily navigation of something deeply personal inside a life that has mostly been lived in the open. According to reports, she has not been alone in this. Her children have been close. Her friendship with Oprah, which both women have described over the years as one of the most sustaining relationships in their lives, has been a source of real support. That kind of presence matters more than people sometimes acknowledge. When you are facing something hard, the people who simply stay, who do not need you to perform strength, who let you be uncertain, those people are everything. But support does not dissolve fear. It sits alongside it, and fear is real in these moments, even for someone with decades of experience staying composed in impossible situations. Health challenges reach into places that training and professionalism cannot protect. They ask questions that do not have broadcast-ready answers. What the public response revealed was something worth paying attention to. The comment sections that followed the reports were not filled with the kind of noise that usually surrounds celebrity news. They were quieter, more earnest, people sharing what Gayle had meant to their mornings, saying they were praying, saying they were hoping. The concern was not performative. It felt like something real, something that had been waiting quietly beneath the surface of years of daily viewership and had finally found a reason to rise. There is something that does not get spoken about enough when these conversations happen, the weight of being needed, not in a theoretical way. In a daily, structural, built into other people's lives kind of way. Gayle King is not simply a familiar face on a screen, she is woven into the mornings of millions. She is part of the architecture of how people begin their days. And when you occupy that kind of space in people's lives, stepping back from it, even when stepping back is exactly the right thing to do, even when your body is asking you to, carries its own particular pressure. People who have spent long careers in high-demand roles often describe a version of the same thing: the guilt of slowing down, the disorientation of not doing what you have always done. The strange feeling that your identity has become so tied to your work that pulling back from it raises questions you are not yet ready to face, even inside yourself. According to those close to her, as reports have suggested, Gayle King is someone who has always poured herself fully into what she does. That is admirable. But it also means that being asked to pull back, to slow, to rest, to let others carry what she has always carried herself, is not a simple thing. It asks something of her that years of habit have not prepared her for. There is also the question of legacy. Not in a dark or final sense, but in the honest, human sense that serious illness has a way of making you think about what you have built, what you are proud of, what you still want to do, what conversations you have not yet had. Illness has a way of collapsing time, of making the distance between now and later feel both urgent and uncertain in the same breath. She is not at the end of anything, not by any reasonable measure. But the questions that arise in these moments, the ones asked in quiet rooms and in the honesty of early morning hours, they are not the kind that get answered on television. They are the ones that get answered slowly, privately, with the people who are actually there. The word goodbye is a strange one. We say it every day without thinking. It is automatic, a closing, a social reflex, but there is another version of it that is not automatic at all, the one that exists in uncertainty, the one that is neither confirmed nor denied. The one that floats in the space between what is known and what is feared. Quiet, heavy, present without being named. That is the goodbye fans have been sitting with. Not because anyone has spoken a final word, not because an official announcement has brought anything to a close, but because the weight of the situation, as it has been reported, is enough to make people feel the need to be emotionally prepared, even without knowing what they are preparing for. And that is a deeply human thing to do. It is what people do when they care. What is also worth remembering in all of this is what Gayle King represents beyond the program, beyond the anchor desk, beyond the years of interviews. She came up in an industry that did not make room easily for women who looked like her. She moved through spaces that required more effort for less recognition. She navigated that without turning the struggle into her entire story, though she has always been honest about it when honesty was called for. She became something for a generation of viewers, and especially for a generation of young journalists, proof of what was possible. That you could be warm and tough, curious and grounded. Fully yourself and fully professional at the same time. All of it at once without apology. That kind of contribution does not show up on a trophy shelf. It lives inside the people who were watching, who absorbed it quietly, who carried it with them in ways they may not even fully recognize. When fans say they are worried, when they say they cannot picture mornings the same way, they are not simply expressing a preference for a familiar face. They are expressing something deeper. Gratitude, recognition. The particular ache that comes when you realize someone has been giving you something valuable for years, and you are only now reckoning with how much it meant. Whether what she is facing is a chapter or something more, whether the road ahead leads back to that chair or somewhere else entirely, remains, according to available reports, genuinely open. Nothing has been confirmed in either direction. And that openness, that unresolved space, is where people who care about her are living right now, between hope and preparation, between faith and fear. In the end, this is not really a story about illness. It is a story about what presence means, about what it costs to give yourself to something day after day for decades. about what it means when life finally asks you to turn some of that care back toward yourself. We live in a world that takes from public figures constantly. It takes their time and their energy and their privacy. It takes their composure in moments when composure should not be required of anyone. And sometimes it gives back in the form of platform and purpose and the rare ability to reach people in ways that actually matter. But the exchange is rarely equal. Gayle King gave generously. She gave her mornings and her honesty and her willingness to sit in difficult rooms and ask difficult questions and stay steady when others could not. She gave her laugh, which is one of those laughs that makes a room feel warmer just by being in it. She made television feel at its best like a conversation between people who respected each other, who were actually listening. That is not something easily replaced. It may be something that cannot be replaced at all. The fans who are worried are not wrong. Concern, when it rises from genuine care rather than spectacle, is one of the most honest things one person can feel for another. And the response that has followed these reports, the warmth, the shared memories, the quiet and steady hope, says something true about the relationship between someone who shows up every day and the people who show up with them. It says what you did mattered, what you gave was real, it was not nothing. It was something that people carried into their days and felt better for having. Something they did not even fully appreciate until the possibility of its absence arrived. Whatever comes next for her, whether it is recovery or rest, or a different kind of chapter, or an eventual return to the place she made her own, it will unfold in its own time, in its own way. Without a script, and real life rarely follows a clean arc. It does not wrap up neatly. It just keeps moving, asking us to stay present with it, even when presence is hard. The most honest thing we can do is not rush toward an answer, not force a conclusion before one is ready to arrive, but hold the question gently. And wish simply and sincerely for the person at the center of it to find her way through. She showed up for millions of people without fail for years. The very least we can do right now is show up for her. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about the people whose presence quietly shapes your days, or about what it means to face something difficult with grace and dignity, leave a thought in the comments below. Whatever you are feeling, it is worth saying. And if you believe that stories like this one deserve to be told carefully, with patience and with heart, consider subscribing. There is more waiting for you here, stories told the way they deserve to be. We will see you in the next one.